Pros versus cons.
Okay. Butter. Do you make butter with your goat milk?
I have before, but it takes a lot more.
Right.
The goats we have right now don't have a high cream content. So the Nigerians, it would be a lot easier to do with, and I think it's still not going to be, can't hold a flame to a Jersey.
Right.
And it will taste whatever like your milk tastes like. It might have a little goaty flavor, but if your milk doesn't, it may not too. It's all going to be different.
What are the things you cannot do with goat milk that you can do with cow milk?
Can't or prefer. Those are going to be two different things, like butter.
Yeah.
I'm not a big cook. I have to say that. Like I plan to take a class on what I can do more with the milk, with the cultures. But I make yogurt, I make cheese. But just those are the basics. Oh, cajeta, you can do with goat milk. That's a Mexican caramel. Aaron and I have been making the goat milk caramels. You're gonna add sugar and things to that, but the cajeta is just cooked down goat milk, and it's almost like a sauce, like a caramel sauce.
So can you make hard cheeses with goat milk, or just soft cheeses, like cheddars, Parmesan?
I don't think so.
So it's probably going to be just the soft cheeses, and then also, what I would think would be the biggest, like, what can you do with it? What you can't is the quantity is going to matter the most, because even with me milking 2 cows at a time, I still don't have enough to make all the cheese that I want to make. My cows aren't huge producers. I know people that get 6 or 7 gallons a day and they milk twice a day, and they have enough to make cheddar and Gouda and all that stuff. So then with a goat, I mean, that's out of the question.
If you have a herd, a lot of
If you
them
have
do.
a herd, yeah.
People who are raising goats sometimes they have a machine, but they're milking 7, 10, 15. I was milking 7 by hand at one point. Insanity.
And then what about ice cream?
Very good.
Yeah.
Goat milk ice cream is delicious.
I think the biggest thing, the 2 biggest things that stick out to me are how much land you have, cow versus goat, and then how much, what's in the budget, because the cows are so much more expensive. Me? The cop is calling me.
Time out. I can speak to that though. So having had both, the goats, like I said, can do well in a small area. They don't have to have a lot of land if you're dry lotting them or whatever.
Okay.
Are you going? Are you going? Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you had to leave.
I'm in trouble because I don't have my shoes on.
Oh, okay.
They like us to wear shoes at the library.
Sorry.
Is that all it was?
Yeah, I got fussed at last month.
Sorry.
You can't invite homesteaders to a library and expect us to act right. You can go ahead and finish what you were saying.
What was I saying? Land and cost. Yeah, dairy cows are just very expensive, and not just to buy the cow, but like if you got to go to the vet, the livestock trailer, the fencing for the huge pasture that you have to have, the hay over the winter, they just cost a lot more money.
I feel like feed is more complex, and it may cost more if you have several, or as much if you have several
Goats.
Mm-hmm. But if it's a one-on-one, you don't want to have just one goat either, though. You at least want to have 2. They're herd animals, and they will either be really depressed or they will stand at the gate and yell for you if they don't have someone to be with. But as far as cost, I would say cost and vet work, because we lost a cow this spring that I called over 12 vets when she went down.
Yes,
12.
We do not have vets here that want to deal with cows. That's a huge problem.
There's nothing I could do for her. We tried to make harnesses. We tried the tractor. We tried multiple friends coming over and enrolling her several times. It was very helpless. And for me, I prefer a goat that I can pick up, or at least 2 people can pick up or do something with when there's a problem. It feels a lot more, I don't feel helpless, and I don't feel like if there's something going on that there's just nothing I can do about it in that situation.
Cows less likely to be divas?
To be what?
Divas. She kept referring to some as divas.
I feel like dairy is diva.
Dairy is diva.
I meant dairy versus
Yeah.
meat.
Yeah.
Anything
definitely.
dairy is going to be a diva within that
Yes.
realm.
Or are they okay being by themselves?
No.
Pretty much like either one, you need at least two.
Yeah, I moved my cow a few weeks ago into this amazing pasture that hasn't been touched in over a year. The grass was long, and I put her in there by herself and walked away, and she was just yelling at me, and she was so mad. And I went home and just watched her through the window for a few hours, and she just stood there like mooing at me at the house. And then finally I was like, okay, and I went and got her a friend and brought her in the pasture, and they were fine. So, yeah, they like friends.
Goats, can you have different breeds to create a little group, or is it only?
Oh yeah, my front yard, I call it the Motley Crew. I have 2 summer lambs that were, they're separated so that I can feed them. They're not supposed to be born in the summer, so I feed them separately. And then I have the Alpine and I have the Sonnet, and now we have this little Nigerian buck. So it's different from what I had before, where I had all of these registered show quality Nubians, whereas now we're just looking for milk. You know, you can combine whatever you want to combine as long as they get along. Now, if you have 2 herd queens, they call them, which are the bosses, they're going to have to settle that out. And if they don't, it might be ongoing. As long as no one's hurting each other, as long as one isn't horned and the other one isn't, or you have a situation like that, they should be fine. They'll work it out.
Do they get along with the sheep?
Mine do. The goats are still the bosses, for sure. At least these breeds are. But they all lay together. They don't, you can tell they don't accept them as their own. Like, they can be in the same area and coexist, but there's no mistaking that the goat thinks the sheep is a goat. There's a line.
Are they smarter than sheep?
Yes. Yes. When I got sheep last year, immediately I was like, I get it now. I get why the insult is being called a sheep. And, you know, I understood so many more scriptures also.
What about dangers of parasites with the cow? Because I know we talked about that a lot with the goats.
I would say probably not as susceptible.
Or other disease type.
I mean, there are diseases, there's problems. Any dairy is gonna have problems, but I would say goats are more finicky. Yeah. Just don't get a
I
cheap
would
cow
say
and
by
don't get a
far.
cheap goat,
Yeah.
and you'll be okay.
Don't do cheap dairy.
Yeah.
Okay? But the goats are much more susceptible to parasites. It's a higher maintenance. I wouldn't worry unless it's just like, you know, yearly watching or maintenance. Not yearly, you'd watch them all the time. But the goats you have to watch all the time because they can go like overnight. Like, hey, her eyes were pink yesterday and now they're ghost white. I think she's gonna die. But that's if you haven't been watching and you haven't been pasture rotating or taking care of one that may be susceptible in that way.
I don't vaccinate or deworm at all. Well, that's not true. I did it once, I think, in 7 or 8 years since I've had dairy cows. It doesn't mean my herd couldn't drop dead tomorrow, but they're all fine and healthy enough from that. But somebody did say something about meat, and I just want to point that out too, as the whole pros and cons thing. You're gonna just get so much more meat from the cow that has the baby. You get to eat the baby once it's full grown. So, you know, there's that. I mean, you can also eat the goat's babies, but
And we do, but you breed to a beef bull.
most of the time, yeah.
So that gives a little bit more
Yeah.
meat, right?
Yeah.
With the goat babies, you know, sometimes they have twins, triplets, quads sometimes. Growing up, I always had to tell my daughter, don't get attached if it's a boy. If it doesn't sell, that's going in the freezer. Some people don't prefer the taste of goat. I think it's delicious. You're gonna want to castrate if you're going to raise them out and, you know, to a larger size to process later, because you don't want that taint from them once they reach maturity. But goat on the grill with some rosemary and curds, great.
It's really good. Is anybody thinking goat versus cow? Is anybody kind of confused about that? Anyone here? You a little bit?
What about chickens intermingling with cow versus goat?
It's fine. For me, it's fine.
With the goat, I wouldn't do it with babies because of the coccidium. But once they're big, they're fine. And if they have somewhere, like I said, raised hay or browse, the goats don't want to graze. They will only graze if that's all they're given. So yeah, you don't want them grazing on short grass that's been pooped on by a chicken. It's not great, but it can be done if done with care.
And you have electric fencing for your goats too?
Mhm.
So kind of weave that through like a tree
Yeah.
line?
Oh yeah, ours looked like a game of Tetris at our house for a while, and we've just kind of opened things up a bit. But if you even just want to do small sections and kind of leapfrog them so that they're on a fresh piece all the time, that's excellent. It's higher maintenance, but to keep them off of certain areas for a while is best practice. If they're having to graze, if they don't have browse.
So I personally hate electric fencing, like with all my heart and soul. She doesn't mind it, right? Is that true?
It's annoying, but I like the versatility of it. Like I like to have an outside perimeter and then be able to do what I need to do with the electric fencing. But right now, one side of my front yard is purely electric, but that's just because we're not set up yet.
Yeah, it's a great option before you have permanent fencing. I definitely have a lot of electric fencing. I just can't stand it.
I hate moving it. I do.
Is the electric fencing also good for keeping coyotes out?
Yes.
Okay, so it could be a permanent thing? Okay, well,
At this point, mine's pretty much a permanent thing. Yeah. You have to make sure you have a backup charger because that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because they will test it, and then when they figure out it's not on.
After storms, if the charger gets blown down, you have to weed eat under it. You have to make sure no limbs fall on it. I mean, it's a constant.
And then another quick question, you said browse multiple times, and I know you kind of explained it was like a tree line, right?
Right, so browse are bushes, trees, anything shrubbery, okay?
I had heard that goats will kill trees, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You don't want to put them in a fruit orchard. No, they will
Okay.
eat everything. They will climb that tree, they'll break their leg in that tree.
Are good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Cows
They'll
will
try-
kill that.
They'll try to eat the bark.
Yeah,
You know,
cows
So
will
that's,
rub.
we've got a wooded area, and we were thinking about putting the goats in that area.
Oh, that would be fabulous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But you definitely want to look for forks, like low-lying forks in a tree. Perfect leg trap.
Okay.
So if you don't have a climber, it's fine, but if you have one that particularly does that, I would just put a board or something, to block it
Thank you.
preventatively.
Thanks for explaining that.
There was something else with fences. Oh, so we have a solar box to energize our fence, and then we have a backup plug-in one. That's what I prefer, so that if you need to move it somewhere where you're not close to an outlet, you can. But if something goes out with that, or, I mean, it's been fine even with stormy days, but just always have a backup. Work smarter, not harder. They will love that. Turn your browse into milk and meat. I would just, like I said, be careful, walk through it. If there's small saplings that'll bend, you're not gonna have a problem.
What about with us being in such a hurricane prone area, like as far as preparing animals for hurricanes, like cows versus goats? Like what do you do to prepare for hurricanes? And obviously it'd be easier to put some goats in a trailer and roll out.
Yes.
But do you ride them out with the animals? What do you do in those
I think it would
situations?
depend on what the category is, what your place looks like. I don't have a barn right now, but they'll say like in a hurricane, it's better to leave them out because if something's gonna collapse, they're in there, they're done.
Yeah.
Goats hate rain. They hate rain and hate puddles. They will avoid water they will do anything to avoid water. It's actually really funny. So if corrective action needs to be taken, sometimes a spray bottle is really good to get them down or something. But I just try to make sure that there's somewhere they can go to get out of the rain, or there's a windbreak, but that they could still leave if they wanted. I wouldn't lock them up, or anything like that.
If it were gonna be like a category 5, it was coming straight for us, I would probably load up my cow that was currently in milk and take off, along with some chickens that are producing and a few other things, just so that when I get back, if everything's gone, at least we have
Best
something.
of luck to everybody else.
Yeah, right. But we've left for hurricanes before and just leave them out in the most secured, perimeter type fence, yeah, the one that we think is gonna stay up, but also, I mean, you've been to my house, we don't leave them behind my house, we leave them on our other property that has a tree line, cause they'll go
Yeah.
hide in that tree line. Yeah.
Okay.
So this isn't hurricane related, but it's pipeline related. And when we went to Pennsylvania, we loaded everyone into our horse trailer and traveled with them. And we found 2 farms in Pennsylvania. We took that electric netting, which is also what it's really great for, camping with farm animals. It was chaos, but loaded everyone up in it. We had 3 goats at that time. One of our goats gave birth to triplets while we were there. And we used the horse trailer as their shelter, and we put the electric fencing around it. We plugged up our camper, and it was a portable farm. And it worked really well. And I think for that application especially, the goats are easier to maneuver. You can take more.
The goat milk is naturally homogenized, right? So it doesn't
Yeah.
separate.
Good
like
point.
the-
Good point. So if you're gonna just want cream, you need to get a cream separator versus just sitting. Oh, but I wish I had that picture. Sweetie, that goat I was telling you about, had so much cream, and hers did settle after days. It will come to the top, and in a mason jar. It was almost like a cow. She was the best one. So they're all different. I just keep saying that, but they're all different. I can tell you the generalizations, but it's kind of a toss-up of what you're gonna get.
Is butter from goats as good as butter from cows?
No, not to me personally. I don't think there's anything like butter from a Jersey.
Mark Simon's butter was fabulous.
Yeah.
So I know like the goats had the A2, I mean the cows is similar for goat or?
They are all, I believe, A2. It's the closest to breast milk you can get, which is why they raise babies on goat's milk. So it's actually very good for you. And a lot of people that can't tolerate cow's milk, even A2 can tolerate goat's milk.
Would you say it would be a good idea to taste the cow's milk before you, the goat's milk before you buy it? You already told them that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Big time, because different breed, different environment.
Yeah.
I
I cannot handle the taste of goat's milk except for that, because that is very close to cow's milk. But
I was nervous trying it because I've tried other goat's milk that was not
I know.
that good.
It does it such a disservice. I don't know how many people are like, oh, I just can't do that. And I'm like, just come over. Just taste
It does
it.
age though.
Because I can't do that.
I can drink it the first week. After that, it's too goaty for me.
Right.
yeah.
If it tastes like I'm licking a goat, I'm not drinking
Yes. Once you know the way a male goat smells, that ruins
it. Kind of
me.
scarred for life. Yeah.
I can't eat goat cheese because of it now. I
love goat cheese.
but my kids love it.
So can that change from place to place? Like if you try it somewhere and then you bring it to your property and feed it differently, will that milk flavor change? Or you kind of like what you get is what you get?
It's normally what you get is what you get, unless you're not giving them feed that is changing, like if they have a lack of minerals, or kind of like the cow in the onion patch type deal. There might be something that they get into that makes it taste off, but I haven't experienced a lot of that at all.
Does the cow milk have the same variation that the goat milk does?
What do you mean? Variation in
Flavor.
flavor?
Or it's gonna be the
No.
same all the time?
Some cow milk is more sweet than others. That's all I've noticed.
Like you can tell whose milk you're drinking.
I can. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't like get to a point where you're like, cow.
No, it's how sweet it is. That's how I know which milk to get. Takes a really long time to milk a cow. Probably doesn't take that long to milk a
True.
goat.
Very true. I prefer it. It goes quickly. And then, we didn't even talk about teat size. I talked about orifice size, but teat size, you want to make sure that when you are gripping that teat, that's comfortable for your hand. Another reason I don't own Nigerians is because they have a smaller teat, but some of them have nice big ones that you can grasp, but a lot of them would be like this, and I'm not for it. I don't
Cows
want
are
them.
still like that. Right now I have a cow that I'm milking with these 3 fingers. But my hands they've gotten used to it and it's fine. It just takes a few weeks of intense pain and then you're okay.
You have a really great grip, and
Yeah.
Great for arms.
Yeah.
As far as the difference in time, like half the time, a quarter of the time. And time to milk cows versus goats.
The one cow that I'm milking now, let's say she's giving me 1.5 gallons. She's a slow milker just because of the teat size, the pressure, everything. So she's a slow milker, and it takes me probably 30 minutes, like the first squeeze to the
Focused.
last squeeze. Yeah. But my other cow who made 1.5 gallons, I could milk her out probably in like 15 minutes or less. If I was maybe 10 if I had to go somewhere.
All of them are different on how much they're producing and then at what point in lactation you are. So right now we're at the end of a 2-year lactation. So what are you getting, like a little over a quart a day? Okay. So a little over a quart, maybe close to 1/2 gallon. And how long? I think about 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Yeah. But she has really good orifices. She's very easy to milk, very supple teats. And
I know the quantity of milk scares people with the cows. People say they want the cow for all these reasons, but they're scared to have so much milk. And they'll say, I don't even buy milk from the store. And I didn't either before I got the cow. And those first few months, I was like, oh my goodness, I was selling so much milk. Yeah, and but then you just kind of get used to doing different things with it, and then you get used to just drinking it, and then it just becomes like the main
part of you.
Yes, then it's just like, how do I live without 5 gallons of milk a week to drink by myself? Well, not that much, but it's we drink a lot of milk, and I never needed milk before, so. I just don't want people to be scared of having so much milk. Also, when you have so much milk, you can raise pigs on that. You can raise chickens on that. You can raise anything, any other animals on that. I mean, there are people who will get a dairy cow for their family, and then they'll have another one, so they're milking 2, and the second one goes to all their animals, and they raise all their animals on milk, which is pretty amazing.
Or you can even soak the feed in it.
Can soak the feed in it, yeah.
Culture it that way. I'm not a big milk drinker. I mean, but like you were saying with the habit, we went years having to be dairy free in between when we had our herd before. We had to sell out completely, and then we just got goats back again. So I was completely out of the habit of drinking milk. And if I did, it was oat milk or coconut milk from a can, and the least amount of fillers you can get. But Soph loves it. And I have noticed, just because of the probiotic content, she's different. When she's drinking a lot, and when I got her when she was younger, she would just chug it. If we went out of town and came back, it was almost like she was deprived of it, and her body would just need so much of it at that time. I think focus increases, skin health.
Yeah, my kids' personalities, when they're babies, when they're young, it changes. Well, it changed whenever we didn't have milk. I mean, it was like a completely different child. And then once they got back on milk again, it was a different personality.
And we are definitely talking about raw milk. Like, oh yeah, it's just raw milk. Because of everything that it has in it for the gut, the brain, development. I would find the opposite effect if I was trying to dump pasteurized milk into her. We had respiratory infections and skin issues.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but I just wanted to remind everybody that there are so many good books here and at all the other branches of the libraries on keeping goats and things like that. So definitely check those out.
Can one versus the other last longer in the fridge and stay good?
14 days.
Well, after about a week and a half, I don't want to drink it. For me personally, with this goat.
Yeah.
So, like, the one Nubian we had, we were good for 2 weeks. So it's all depends.
Yeah, it's about 14-ish days that you can still drink it and it's fine. And then after that, I can still make yogurt with it. Yeah, but it does not sit that long.
Is there as much demand for people that are interested in selling it? Is there as much demand for goat's milk as there is raw cow's milk?
Because a lot of women need it for their babies. A lot lot of people would come to me when they were going out of town or when they were drying up or with health issues.
I
So
do think that that's a good point, though. I think, can you be profitable selling raw cow's milk, goat's milk?
hypothetically, like I said with feed and stuff, I think they take a lot more than a cow, and a cow produces more. So if you had a really high producing goat and she was an easy keeper, you might be okay.
Yeah.
But a gallon of cow's milk, $10. Gallon of how much?
Right now, I would sell it for like 17, and that still would be enough.
Wow. Okay, markets have changed, but back when cow was getting about 10 a gallon, I was getting 20 for those because the supply of a goat versus the intake and everything is so different. So a quart would be $5.
But having a plan to sell cow's milk and be profitable is a terrible plan. It's just not. I mean, it's just not gonna work.
Before anyone else files out, when I was making my slideshow, the very first page was about legalization in Louisiana, and there's a petition right now that I think they have like a week to go. So we can try to get that link sent out to everyone if you guys would like to go sign it. We've been fighting for years, and I think it was in like 2014 we got pretty far, and on the last step they shot it down again. So
Are there any ways around the legal stuff around selling? Are there ways to sell the milk legally?
Louisiana can do herd share,
Okay.
but you want to have contract. It's messy.
It's messy. Nobody's gonna come after you. Just don't put it on Facebook. Hey, I'm selling raw milk.
Okay, thanks for coming,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Thank you.